What's happening, everybody? So it is 4 in the morning. We're here at the office grabbing some gear. We're gonna do a workout with Steve. Just so you guys know, he was named the fittest athlete in the NFL. He has a program called Armageddon, basically for your arms. So I'm probably gonna get my arms ripped off today. And then from there, after we do this incredible workout at this very specific gym in San Diego, that's only for NFL punters and kickers, and they train there. It's kind of like a little compound. We're going to go to Steve's house. We're going to film a podcast. It's going to be incredible. So we're super fired up. We got to get down there. It's early. It's early in the morning. What's happening, everybody? So today on the Andy Dane Carter Show, we have a very special guest. This very special guest worked out my arms today because we did this crazy workout, and I'm probably not going to be able to brush my teeth this evening. We did arms with Mr. Armageddon, and if you're starting to catch the hints of who this might be, we are here with Steve Weatherford.
Dude, it's good to be here, man. 640 reps later.
Man.
I was actually joking with Andy this morning when Kyle was filming us, and I said to him, well, it's a good thing you don't have to hold the mic when we do our podcast later. And to my chagrin, we are holding our mics today, and I'm impressed because I thought Kyle was going to have to like spoon feed you after that workout because it wasn't just the amount of reps that we did. Like you pushed it. And you haven't trained arms in quite some time.
It's been a very long time. But if you think I'm just going to like roll to your gym and give it like 40%, you're out of your mind. Like
I know. Well, I learned something about you. I took you out of your comfort zone and plopped you into my universe.
Yep.
And you brought it.
Because the plan was to go to Puke Hill.
Yeah.
And I love cardio, love endurance. I love to suffer for long periods of time. So when we had to pivot because of the rain, I was like, oh shit. Like, yeah, it's on. And it was great.
Not a lot of time to mentally prepare.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So like it was a very special place for you as well. And we got this gym is legendary gym. So maybe give them just a quick little backstory on where we were, and then kind of give them your story of where you're from, your journey through the NFL, and then we're going to go straight into like Steve Weatherford, the man. If you guys don't know who he is and you want to hear all of his incredible successes from the NFL, you can hit pause and look him up. This podcast is not going to be NFL based. It's going to be Steve Weatherford, the man, the husband, the father, the incredible entrepreneur, and the guy holding space and being of service.
Yeah, man. Thank you. So you just asked me to do some things that I could probably spend 45 minutes doing,
right.
But I'm going to breeze through them because really like my intention when you and I connected and I was like, yeah, I'd love to do your show is like, my intention is I want the people that listen to this podcast to be able to have one thing, just one thing that they take from this show and they apply into their life. Just one thing. Just think about if we all did that. Every piece of content that we consume, if we just took one thing that would help improve our lives and we applied it with consistency, like what kind of lives would we be living? Because we consume so much content. There's so many podcasts out there. There's so many YouTube shows. There's so many Instagram influencers. There's a lot of pro athletes. I mean, in my case, you know what? It's been 52 or 53 years of the Super Bowl being held. There's 52 other Super Bowl champions, Super Bowl champion teams. So like what is going to cut through the smoke and what is going to resonate with people? And I've found out kind of the hard way, Andy, is
me too.
I thought it was the achievements and I thought it was the accolades and, Super Bowl champion and, entrepreneur and, Walter Payton philanthropist of the year and all these things that I worked so hard in my life to achieve, it would be fun and it would be an ego boost for me to come on your show and talk about those things. But that doesn't relate to people. Like people don't relate with somebody that played football and on TV and wore shorts to work and got paid millions of dollars to do it. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm so freaking thankful that I was able to live that journey. And I think people, once they hear where I came from and where I went to and really kind of like why I went there, I think that will be really what allows people to relate to my life and relate to my struggles. And it's you see somebody on TV, these different influencers, whether they're professional athletes or politicians or entrepreneurs, and it's so easy for us to sit in those chairs because I've been in those chairs and I'm still sitting in those chairs right now because there's so many people that I admire, and you look at them and it's so easy to start a list in your mind of why they're doing what they're doing and why you can't do it. And we spend so much time as human beings focusing on the things that we don't have or the things that we can't do, that it stops us from even trying. And so my story is, it started 1982, Crown Point, Indiana. I was born there, lived there for 2 years, moved down to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, lived there for 12 years. And then at 13 years old, moved back up to Indiana, to Terre Haute, Indiana, and was always very, very athletic, but I just breezed through the first 14 years of my life. It was riddled with me hating myself because of ADHD and the fact that I couldn't sit still in school. And the only time I ever really felt like worthy of people's love or attention was when I was playing sports. And so I had all of my self-worth tied up into what I could do athletically, which drove me to become a great athlete. And I had some God-given abilities, but I worked insatiably hard. It wasn't winning for me, wasn't about did I win or did I lose? Because if I won, it was an expectation that I had. And if I lost, like it was all my fault. And so it made competition like very, very serious to me at a very young age because I didn't feel like people would love me if I lost. And so it sent me to some dark places, man. And then,
and that was a huge piece that I really want you guys to let sink in. He didn't think they would love me if I lost. And I know a lot of you can relate to something that's there in your life where that might be a fear or that might be a piece that's blocking you. We're all here to be loved. Like when we strip it all away, we just want to be loved.
Yeah. I mean, you think about like all the things we work so hard in life, like society values very high, and it's notoriety, it's homes, it's money, it's watches, it's clothes, it's your physique. Like we hold these things so high, and I'm not going to say like I'm not in that group. I mean, there's a reason that we're sitting in these chairs, and I weigh 245 pounds. It's because a long time ago when I was a little boy and I was a 108-pound freshman, I hated myself because I looked so much different.
Right.
And so that kind of started a complex in my mind, like a prove it complex. But, once I proved it, then
what?
Then I, then I didn't feel any different about myself because my body had changed, but how the relationship I had with myself hadn't changed. And so it's my whole life up until probably, I don't know, maybe even 2 years, as recently as like 2 years ago, my whole life has been prove it and achieve it so you're worth it type of thing. Yeah. And it leads for a very empty life because I was able to achieve a lot of really cool accolades in my life. and that didn't change the opinion that I had of myself. And so really, like, my crusade right now as a man, as a father, as a husband, an entrepreneur, an influencer is to tell my real story, not the Instagram version of it. It's not sexy for me to talk about being, sexually abused when I was in 7th grade. It's not cool or marketable for me to talk about just 2.5 years ago being addicted to pain pills. It's not cool for me to talk about, alcohol abuse. It's not cool for me to talk about the fact that I've been arrested a dozen times. But I'm thankful for all of that, because that's what relates to people, man. Like, those are the real life stories, not the ESPN 30 for 30s. Real life stories, real life struggles, real life men telling real life stories. And that's why I think it's exciting for me to create a brotherhood with you, and have an opportunity to learn from you in real estate, and how you manage just huge groups of people and how you create cultures. I'm learning. Like, you think you're coming down here to do a podcast with me, to put a great podcast together, and we are. But I'm learning. You know what I mean? Anytime I get an opportunity to be around a high achiever, regardless if it's, the different jobs that I rattled off earlier, or somebody that's in an industry I've never even been intrigued by, I want to learn. It just
and that's
so happens,
why you've been so successful. Like, I'm literally wired the same way. I struggled with all the same things. And when I heard your real story, because the first time that Steve and I met was at this awesome event that was put on by Lewis House 3 years ago, almost to the day. Like, it was last month. And I didn't know that much about Lewis. I'm like, he just seems like a good dude. So I went to the event and you showed up. Now, I kind of knew who you were, but the guy I was sitting next to was like a super fan. He's like, "There's Steve Weatherford." I'm like, all right, cool. Like, but it was cool. What you said on stage that I was like, he's a good dude. I go, but he's sitting in front of his ego right now. And I could see it. And it was fascinating. Fast forward 3 years to hearing you tell, it was still your story, but a piece that was in my notes, because I went back and looked, it was, the rent is due every day. And there was these, and I circled it like 100 times, but I heard your truth not that long ago. And it was a different energy. It was a different feeling. I connected with you instantly because I saw so much of my struggles in you with the stuff with ADHD. I'm severely dyslexic. I've had addiction issues for everything my whole entire life. And
I didn't know that about you.
Major.
Yeah, like, right on, man.
I was in rehab 10 years ago, like at the bottom. Bottom, drinking, you name it. And I've struggled with those things because I set these targets and I hit them because I know I'm going to hit them because I know how hard I work. And I know I obsess over things until I achieve them to fill a hole that was unfillable. And then when you talked about being sexually abused, and I was driving down here today and I started to get choked up. I was like, what is that about? And then I realized that I'd blocked out forever. It all came back as I'm driving down here, listening to your podcast, and you talk about it. And I heard this voice that just said, "It's time." I was like, what is that about? And I started to play back in my head when I was sexually abused by my babysitter when I was 5. My parents got divorced, not knowing I was going to be like 20 miles from where it happened. Like, you gave me permission to share this for the first time ever. My wife doesn't know this. Like, dude, what you were able to just put into words, man, gave me the praise. I'm 42 years old. I forgot it happened. It all started to come back, and I was like, what? I was flooded with emotion. And I was not gonna do it. I was still gonna puss out. I'm like, I'm gonna tell him at the workout, and we're gonna connect on that, but I'm not gonna put it out publicly. And I was just like, no, that's not like God spoke to me, and he's like, it's time. Like, Kyle's been with me for almost 3 years. Nobody knows any of this. My babysitter, when my parents got divorced, was my neighbor. She was like 13 years old, and she used to watch us. And she had this game she would call Playing Naked. She would get naked, and I would get naked. We didn't do anything really sexually, but it messed me up. And I would have never in a million years said a word about it unless I heard you say what I heard on that podcast that I was driving down here. So dude, from the bottom of my heart, man, thank you so much. I'm going to have a crazy conversation with my wife when I get home, but I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of sharing my story to help other people know, especially men. Man, we don't talk about this stuff. Like my dad and grandfather were raised around, rub some dirt on it and walk it off. Yeah. And if you have a problem, don't talk about it. So brother, thank you so much.
Man, that is, that's powerful, man. I accept that. That is, I don't really know how to reply to that, but I mean, that's feedback for me, man. That's feedback to an encouragement for me to kind of continue the path that I'm on. Dude, I'm sitting here getting choked up too.
You're on a mission. Like you are giving people permission to speak their truth. And it's what I'm all about. So by me holding that back and not sharing it with the world, I'm full of shit. Like by me not, everything I do is on film now. Everything I do is caught on camera or something. But if I don't tell the whole truth, I'm not really being of service to myself or anybody else.
I want you to watch after this episode comes out, because I know there's people listening to this right now that have their own truth that they've been hiding down. I'm so excited to see what's going to happen in your marriage after you have that conversation, because when we hold on to things and we try to create connections with people and we hold on to things, we're creating a barrier.
For sure. We're
creating a barrier for connection, and we're the ones that have the ability to remove that. But it's not easy, because it's like, you mentioned like, well, I'm full of shit. You're not full of shit. Like you're scared.
I know. It's the fear of that little boy. And I have a 5-year-old son now. I couldn't imagine him going through that.
Yeah. And there's people out there that have that's happened to. And people have gone out and because of that, it's absolutely destroyed their life. And there's people conversely like you that have taken that, maybe in some sick, twisted way, use that to motivate you, or just compartmentalized it and put it in the corner of your mind. I never spoke about it until, that's honestly like talking about the sexual abuse that happened when I was in 7th grade by my teacher. That was the reason I wanted to start my podcast, is to be able to have a long form content, not 60 seconds on Instagram or 10 seconds on Snapchat. Like I wanted to be able to because I deserve more than that. I deserve more than to try to condense something that has really affected me in a powerful way, to disrespect that life experience by putting it into 60 seconds, because it can't be done.
Agreed.
So, I wanted to be able to come on a podcast and do what we're doing right now, and being able to create a space where people feel the safety and the security, kind of like you and I talked about when we were having breakfast this morning, that our wives, that's the number one thing for them. It's not clothes or money or houses. It's safety and security. Yep. And dude, so I'm really honored. I mean that you felt safe enough with me, and the acknowledgement that that you felt like that gave you permission, because that it's going to do, you doing that and getting that out from behind the curtain is going to do powerful things in your life, for your marriage, for your connection to your audience. And that connection to your audience is going to allow them to have permission to do the same thing in their life, clean out their closet, because you can't make room. We only have a certain amount of room in our life, and you can't make room for more blessings, and you can't make room for more opportunities, and you can't make room for growth unless you create it. And the way that we create it is by letting go of things like that. Like, you're not carrying that around, but dude, you're carrying that around.
I didn't even know how deep into my subconscious it was. And then it was so crazy how it happened, but so divinely perfect at the same time. I'm driving down, it's raining, it's dark, he's sleeping, it's just me and like the audio I'm listening to. And it was right about where we would turn to go to Vista.
Yeah. And
I heard it and I just decided. And then all of a sudden I heard this very soft voice, like, it's time. And I was just like, oh shit. Like, I'm in goosebumps right now thinking about how I felt, just driving down here. And I was still trying to just like, no, I'm not gonna.
And that's another thing. Like, you talk about getting permission, like I feel like you and I can reach such a deep level of friendship because I will never forget that you did that, what you just did 5 minutes ago, like for the rest of my life. Because that happened a long time ago for you, and you've never shared that.
Nope. There's one other human being that heard a tiny part of the story, and I froze and started to stutter again like I was a kid and couldn't get it out. You're the only human that's even heard me get that far.
Yeah, to me, that's like growing up in sports and then, living in an NFL locker room for a decade. You look around that locker room and the size and the speed and the talent and the hyper aggressiveness of that locker room. Like you would think like, man, these are ultimate males, like impressive. But to me, that's the most insecure place I've ever been in my life.
Yep.
That's not strength. Like what you are doing right now and what you're going to continue to do after this moment, like that's strength to me. That's what I admire, and that's what I try to create in myself every day. And that was powerful, man. Thank you.
No, man, thank you. Like you literally gave me the permission to create more capacity within me to then share. Yeah. And share my whole story and not just parts. And believe me, I share the dark. Most of my audience knows a lot of the dark and the good. My wife and I were in a really bad place 2 years ago. Like it was real dark. And I share a lot, but I didn't share that. And literally, man, like, thank you very, very much.
That's cool.
Really, really appreciate it.
I accept that. Thank you.
Thanks, brother. So with that pivot is like, that was a big thing for me to hear how you do hold that space and how you show up for your family. Because if you're showing up for your family, having all these issues with, drugs and addiction and stuff, I mean, most people are addicted to something. Like people sedate. Some people will binge watch 20 shows in a row, but that's their escapism. What is their escape? Some people shop. Some people it's gambling, sex, drugs, fitness. We all cross addict in some way. Some are more culturally acceptable, like shopping, apparently, but it's still you're trying to fill a hole that's not fillable. You know how many people that I know that have Ferraris and Rolls Royces and big houses that are as broken as any person I've ever seen in my life, and they're never gonna Ferrari themselves into happiness. They're never gonna Lamborghini themselves into a good marriage. Like the real work starts with the vulnerability and the truth of who you are. And I felt like I was giving a lot, but wasn't giving all of it. So I want my listeners out there and whoever ever hears this podcast and my great grandkids that are going to hear this to know that like you have my permission to go all in on you and your truth, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, and it's something I want to make sure that I circle back to that Wanderlust event that you were talking about, because you were mentioning that, and there's something that I wanted to speak on with that, and I wanted to share, but then you stood up and shared what you did. So I want to circle back to it now. Is when you heard me speak, that was probably 3 years ago. It was about 3 years ago. And at that particular time, my marriage was probably about the worst it had ever been. At that particular event that you're talking about, I've always struggled so much with self-worth, as I kind of mentioned earlier, and I would hide behind my achievements and my accolade and look at me on the stage. Yep. I'm physically fit. Here's my Super Bowl ring. I was using all those accolades and the Super Bowl ring and, being big and strong because I was scared to death that people were going to find out like who I truly am. To the point, Andy, before every single NFL game that I ever played in, I puked 4 minutes before every single game that I ever played in my life, with the exception of the biggest game that I ever played in. I puked, and the reason I did is because I was scared to death that the fans, that my teammates, that the coaches were going to find out like he's a fraud. He's not that good. Even when I was like, highly ranked in the world.
The best.
Right.
But inside, your self-worth has a meter. And it doesn't matter what everybody else sees. When you're looking at yourself in the mirror, if that self-worth meter is not through the roof, you're in trouble. And people like you and I that want to please everybody, make everybody happy, we'll put ourselves third, fourth, and fifth, and sixth sometimes. And it's catastrophic.
Well, I mean, even to the point of that Wanderlust event that I spoke at, when I was on stage, I was hiding behind, all of that, rah motivation, which I believe in everything that I was saying up there, but it's not my truth. It's not my whole truth. And you don't know this, and I've actually never shared this before, but I would say over the last dozen years, I've spoken on stage or in front of a classroom or a boys club or a charity event 300 times, probably at least 300 times over the last dozen years. And I bet you out of those 300, 292 of those appearances, I was on painkillers when I did it because I was scared to death, Andy, that before I would go out on that stage, before I hit the Wanderlust stage, I'm chewing up Percocet in the green room. Never shared that before, but I knew I was supposed to be out there on that stage.
You were.
And I knew God had a purpose for me, and I knew I was supposed to impact people in a really special way. But the thing that was stopping me from truly connecting with the audience was vulnerability. And eating Percocets before I would go out on stage would give you the feeling of invincibility,
and numbs
euphoria.
All the stuff.
Yeah, so all the anxiety that I'm experiencing, or could be anxiety or depression or self-limiting beliefs or self-worth issues, all of those would go away for the next 45 minutes. And I would get up on the stage super confident, NFL, fittest man in the NFL according to Muscle and Fitness, Super Bowl champion, and blah, blah, blah. All this smoke and that they would, that they would use to introduce me. And I would jump on the stage like King Kong. But 30 minutes before that, when I'm chewing that pill up and waiting for it to kick in, I'm scared to death. So it just goes to show you, man, it doesn't matter what you achieve in your life. It all comes back to one thing. If you want to have a great marriage, if you want to have great relationships, if you want to be financially free, if you want to just love your life, it starts at 4 o'clock in the morning when you get up out of bed and you look in the mirror, because the person looking back in the mirror at you, I'm not saying the secret to life is getting up at 4 a.m. It could be 9 a.m. I'm telling you how my day goes. I wake up at 4 a.m. I walk into my bathroom and I look into the mirror and I see the person looking at me. And I know 18 hours from that moment, if I can be proud of the person that I'm looking at just one day at a time, I know I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm really focused on 3 things in order to be proud of myself. I want to be a man of integrity, a man of honor, and a man of accountability. So if I can go out from that moment and be integrity, because you can't do integrity, Andy. You can't oh man, did you see that guy on YouTube? He did integrity. No, you have to be integrity. You can't go out into the world and do honor. You can go out in the world and be honorable, but you can't go out into the world and do accountability. You have to be accountable. So I focus on 3 things every single day, and it starts at 4 a.m. Integrity, honor, and accountability. If I can be those things, and I look in the mirror when I'm brushing my teeth at 10 p.m., I know you stack enough of those days on top of each other, I could be president of the United States of America if I felt like that was my calling. And I truly believe that, because it's worked miracles in my life in the last 18 months. My marriage has never been better. My wife is better than my best friend. People say soulmate, and I was like, yeah, she's the love of my life 3 years ago. We are one. Doesn't mean we don't have bad days. Doesn't mean she doesn't struggle with anxiety. Doesn't mean, we don't have arguments once a month because I'm not getting enough. You know what I mean? We still have real life stuff.
It's real. He's a real dude. You guys can't see him in this room. He is a real guy. You guys have seen him on TV a million times, but real guy. Real marriage, real kids, real problems, real issues, real struggles, real successes.
Addictions, yeah.
Real addictions. That's the real. I almost pissed my marriage away because I was afraid to open up to my wife and tell her what I really, really needed.
Dude, 13 months ago, this is real talk, never shared this either. 13 months, you're giving me permission now. 13 months ago, right now we're in Rancho Santa Fe, California. I don't even know how big this house is. Probably 7,000 square foot house.
It's pretty big.
Dude, like my life on paper 13 months ago was freaking perfect. Business is killing it. Everything's killing it on the surface level. But below the surface, like I've never been lower. I hated myself. My marriage was like, it wasn't bad. It was toxic to the point where, dude, I ended up leaving my home for 5 days and like staying in a garage Airbnb for 5 days because I was trying to figure out whether or not my wife was the right person for me.
Yep.
Dude, I got 5 kids and I'm living in an Airbnb. Like it's not a joke. It's not funny. This is real life stuff. And the turning point for me was the conversation that I had with myself in the mirror at like 2:00 in the morning when I'm like smoking my last joint of the day, thinking to myself, like, do I want to like move back to New York and go get my job back at ESPN? And then like, do I want to start this assault of like trying to be famous? Because I left that and I retired from the NFL because I wanted to come out to California and like make my family a priority. And I felt like I was failing at that.
Right.
So then I failed at that for over a year. And that was 13 months ago. And I was contemplating like moving back to New York and starting a new life. And looking back at where I was 13 months ago in an Airbnb, you know, paying like $80 a night, no Wi-Fi, just like brown bagging it and leaving this family, my 4 little girls,
the guilt and the
my
shame,
son,
everything.
Dude, you want to talk about hating yourself
I know.
and being disappointed in yourself. Like, how do you go up from there? And to me, the only place I could go was over to that tiny little bathroom that was probably about 18 cubic feet, looking in the mirror and deciding like, dude, the pen is in my hand. You can get your life together by getting right with yourself and being real with yourself and quit blaming everything on everybody else. Like, you're more than your accomplishments. Just be proud of yourself. You don't need to provide this for your family or that for your family or this for your friends or that for your friends. Like, provide for yourself. Start a relationship with yourself.
It was my story, and Kyle knows my story, almost to the T 2 years ago. I was driving to one of my units, sleeping on an air mattress, telling my children that daddy's going to go work at night, and then coming back at 7 in the morning because they thought I was working the night shift, to drive across the city of Long Beach to sleep in an air mattress in a nasty unit, and then having both hands on the sink in that very similar, I'm sure to you, crappy bathroom, looking at myself in the mirror going, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then finding out that my wife had taken my kids to the other side of the country for 3 weeks.
And you didn't even know.
And I didn't know until I got to my house and they were gone. And I broke, bro. Like, my kids are my world. I broke. And I was just like, I don't care what we do from this point, honey. We're not getting divorced. Like, I've never been all in. I'm going, like, this is it. Mm-hmm. I've never, ever been closer to my wife than I am today. Like, but I had to go through that. Like, I had to get real with myself because I didn't have the relationship that I wanted with myself. Everything was awesome from the outside.
Yeah.
But the hole was getting bigger and I couldn't stop it. So I was just what can I put in there?
Yeah.
But like you, when you decide, if I decide to do something, it's over. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? So you decided enough.
Well, it was funny because I decided, well, not funny, but like looking back on it right now,
But you have to laugh at it. That's one thing that I love about the military and the SEALs and the operators. They have a sick sense of humor because the realest shit there is, that's the most scary and the most catastrophic, you have to laugh at later.
100%.
Or you're
But just
toast.
like, I just don't want to give the wrong impressions
of
people that are listening.
It.
But looking back on it, it is funny to me because very similar to you, like when I tunnel vision in on something, mm-hmm. like it's almost like if I say, like I told my wife like 5 weeks ago, because I'm not a runner, or actually it wasn't 5 weeks ago. I told her a week ago, and the race is in 5 weeks, and I haven't ran more than 3.1 miles in my life. And I told my wife, I'm like, I'm going to run 13.1 miles in 4.5 weeks. She's like, oh God, here we go. Cause it's another like goal that I choose for myself. And then I'm up out of the house at 3:30 in the morning instead of 4. And then, my diet is not going to be like, I'm not going to eat pizza when they order pizza. Like I'm going to be regimented, da, 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 da. So she knows I'm going all in. So when I say a goal like that, she just knows like, okay, buckle up and try to find where he needs support, because he probably doesn't even know. He's just going to bulldoze himself to that goal. And then a lot of the times my wife gets left like picking up the pieces of me bushwhacking myself to the goal, and she's got to pick up the pieces and put our life back together. But I'm going to get to my goal. Point being, so when I retired from the NFL, I worked at ESPN for 6 months, had my own radio show, TV show, like on paper again, killing it, but felt so unfulfilled, because I'm just talking about what athletes were doing with their life the night before in a game or the upcoming game. And so I was just talking about sports. I wasn't impacting people's lives, and it left me feeling very unfulfilled, because I said I was going to retire to make a difference in people's lives, but all I'm doing is like building my personal brand and talking about what other athletes are doing. I might as well just go back to the NFL and be the one that they're talking about. So I decided to retire, and my wife had always wanted to live in Southern California. So we moved out here. I'm like, all right, so now I'm going to take this obsessive focus and I'm going to put it on my marriage, like tunnel vision on my marriage.
Sounds
and
good
I
on
did
paper,
that.
right?
Yeah, I did that for a year.
Right.
Guess what? That's what led me to putting drugs up my nose off the dashboard of my car 14 months ago, is because I went all in on something for the first time ever and I failed. And I felt like a failure. That's why I was at the point where I was thinking about, like, I just went all in on something for over a year and I didn't move the needle not one bit. And
how many times had that happened to you in your life ever?
Zero.
Right.
I don't want to say this like I'm Conan the Barbarian, just conqueror of
But
all.
when you're used to
I have
winning and you
never
fail, yeah.
in my lifetime, to this point in my life, I have never set a goal that I haven't achieved. And I'll handed the Bible. The only goal that I had in the NFL that I had not yet to achieve. So I do want to mention this, because I don't want to call myself a liar, because I know when I look in the mirror later that I told a lie on this show. I did have a goal of being a Pro Bowler, all pro in the NFL, and I did not do that. But aside from that one goal, every single goal, and I freaking set a lot of goals, I've achieved every single one of them, except for the one that I thought was going to make me happy. And the reason the tunnel visioning in on my marriage didn't work is because my relationship with myself was completely toxic. So really what I hope lands for our listeners today, Andy, is no matter what you want to do in your life or what you want to achieve, it starts with the relationship that you have with yourself. So if you really want to focus out and achieve and impact and grow and scale and just love life, you're always going to have to work hard regardless, and it's going to be painful.
Yep. It's supposed to be a little painful.
But you sharing what you shared today, or me having a share that I've never shared today, that's not comfortable.
Nope.
Now I'm starting to get a little bit more comfortable sharing a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, because it's like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the more confidence you're going to have in it, the more endurance you're going to have in it, the more fortitude, the more strength you're going to have in that muscle. So really my challenge to people listening to this is have that conversation. It doesn't have to be on a podcast.
No.
Like for you, Andy, it was probably more comfortable for you to share something like that with me, knowing, dude, I've been there. My teacher put his hands down my pants more than once.
It's the only reason I shared. You literally handed me the sword and said it's cool.
But now you don't have to. You get to go have that conversation with your wife. You get to have healing with your wife on that. In addition to, she can support you because she knows, oh, I had no idea that you went through this. That explains A, B, and C. Let me be able to flex into more of an empathetic role to support that damage that you had in your life. Right. So your relationship is gonna, dude, it's gonna fly from here because she's gonna be empowered that you trust her enough to share that with her. In addition to, it's going to explain some things about you. Dude, I'm freaking excited for you. I'm excited for the listeners. And my challenge to the listeners is have that conversation. It doesn't have to be the deepest, darkest thing. Yeah. Although That's the most powerful.
Sometimes ripping the Band-Aid off as I'm just
I agree.
sitting here and feeling what it feels like, because I've shared a lot in my life, but to just rip it off is way better. And having those crucial conversations with the people that you love the most, including myself, like I had the conversation in my head with myself and was still very much doubtful. But again, I'm a very spiritual person. I believe in God very, very deeply. And when I heard that it's time, there was nowhere for me to go.
Right.
I wasn't like wiggling my way out of this.
What do you say to somebody right now who's thinking like, maybe like right now in this moment is my time? Because you can give coaching. You literally just had the conversation.
Yeah,
in your
no,
mind.
for sure. And I coach a lot of people, but I would, if you're struggling with it and it's just inside, I would get it from your brain to a piece of paper and get it at least out of your body to start, and then really feel what that feels like. And you don't have to run, you can walk. But for me, it's just how I'm built. It's easier for me to go all in, but really be self-aware of what's going to work for you. Just know that whatever you're holding on to is not serving you or anybody around you.
No, man.
And if you're trying to be of service to yourself and you're really, here's the beauty of this whole thing is when you get really quiet at night and it's just you know what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like you do. Like, I don't care how far you stuff it down or how many things you drink it away or pill it away.
Mm-hmm.
It'll come back until you address it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually worse until you do. So, if I could give anybody permission to do anything, it's just like, if you have something that's on your chest, just get it off.
Yeah.
It's much easier said than done. Believe me, I'm 42 years old. It happened to me when I was 5.
Well, think about it. You've made a lot of money in your life.
Mm-hmm.
I've been very fortunate as well. 10-year NFL career, and as an entrepreneur, been very fortunate. The accolades, the notoriety. When you show up somewhere, people know who you are. You own restaurants, own buildings. Think about how hard it was for you to, in your mind, show weakness and vulnerability.
For sure.
Obviously, we know that it's not weakness, but it feels like weakness because of how you were raised. And dude, I'm from the Midwest, man. My family is like, shit. we are our problems. Like if you have a problem, deal with it, you pussy. Rub dirt on it. Get up. Let's go. Like there's no empathy is not something that is even spoken of. I actually didn't even know what empathy meant until I went to college.
I know, it's so important. Empathy and compassion are so important to be able to understand somebody where they're at.
Yeah, but like I am not my dad.
Nope.
Like my dad was a very good dad. Did he have gaps in the way he parented me? Absolutely. I have gaps in the way that I parent. So my point being is the generational curse in my family of just handle your business. Don't be soft. I'm not going to give that to my son. Now I'd be lying if I said in my mind, like, I don't want my son to grow up soft.
I don't either.
I'm hard as stone.
Me too.
But I'm getting to exercise the muscle of vulnerability. And since I've started to exercise that with my son, Andy, dude, I'm telling you what, and it was the Christmas break of 2018, just recently, a few months ago, we're on Christmas break. And I asked my son, because I train early in the morning, I said, hey, you want to come work out with me early in the morning? Because he always sees me, coming home from the gym and fixing him breakfast at like 7:30. So I'm get my training in. I'm home by 7:30, fixing breakfast, take it to school. So he knows my routine, and I take him to the gym with me on the weekends all the time. So he's seen the grind. But it wasn't until I invited him, and we're leaving the house at 4:55 a.m., 5 a.m. We're at the stairs by 5:30, and it wasn't until we had alone conversations where I got to share with him what I experienced when I was his age, like the self-worth. Because I take him to go listen to me speak all the time, and we'll have conversations on the way back, and he'll recant some of the stories to me and ask me questions like, "Oh, Dad, I had no idea that that you struggled with this. I hadn't have no idea that you used to be 108 pounds when you were a freshman in high school, and everybody used to tease you."
Dude, I'm getting goosebumps. Like, what a massive opportunity to just dad.
Yeah.
To really open up and
he's never seen me weak though.
That's what I mean though. Like, dude, you gave yourself permission, which is now giving others permission, and now you're actually having the crucial conversations with your children.
Right.
Dude, it's you've broke the generational tie. That's probably gone back 5 or 6 plus however many generations.
Right.
Do you know how hard it is to do that? You should be very proud of yourself.
I am very proud of myself. I mean, that's literally my goal today, is to show up in this podcast a way that serves people. And I want to be able to, like, authentically, truthfully, and transparently share my journey and a few stories that will illustrate I'm no different. Like, I'm actually probably a little bit more jacked up than
most.
I'm more jacked. Put it this
too.
way. I'm more jacked up than most.
Me too.
However, through that journey, I was able to take, like, the mess of what life gave me, and I was, in a weird way, able to use it as fuel, as
like
you
find
were.
those gems. But dude, you're giving your son the greatest gift ever. He gets to learn it from you, not from his buddies, not from his buddy's dad, not from YouTube, not from some podcast that he wish he could hear it from you. You're parenting, like, at a real level. Like, do you know how amazing it is for my son to know the difference between happy tears and sad tears from his dad? Dude, I had no idea that even existed.
Right.
But I cry in front of my children, and I'll have to explain it to them because sometimes they don't know. Like, are these happy tears or sad tears? I'm like, oh, I'm so happy, man. Like, that's the best. And you get to share that with your son, man. Like, and those long drives, or like to the gym or back, or to, like, hear you speak, and then he gets to hear it from you, and then you guys get to share in that connection. Dude, that's what it's all about.
Well, I mean, think about this. My son grew up in NFL locker rooms where, like,
alpha.
It was alpha. In addition to, like, people like Drew Brees, Reggie Bush, Eli Manning, Odell Beckham Jr. Those were like uncles, and they are like uncles to my son. They don't show weakness or vulnerability, and they're not, like, bad people.
Right.
They're just in the NFL locker room. You don't see that.
That's the climate.
You don't
of the NFL.
see it. You don't experience it. And then when my son would go and listen to me speak at these different places during my NFL career, I was eating painkillers, and obviously he didn't know that. And I'm on the stage doing what I did at Wanderlust. Is up there just ripping the mic and hiding behind my ego and my achievements and trying to inspire people through what I have done, not what I've been through.
Which was great. It was still incredible. It was still great. I just knew there was more in you. I could tell.
Sure. And, you know, I'm sure in a sick, twisted way, I knew that there was too. I just wouldn't give myself that acknowledgement because I had such a low opinion of myself. You know, if people knew I did drugs, or that I was addicted to this, or that I was abused, or this, or people know that I was stealing, and people know that, you know, I used to beat people up in college when I was drunk, and all these horrible things that I've done. My son gets to hear those stories now because he's never seen me weak. My son has never seen, up until, you know, December of this past year, I never wanted my son to see weakness in me because I wanted to inspire him to be great and get up at 4:00 and do this and achieve this and build this and buy that. And I alienated my son because I had created this character in my son's life that was like Superman, that could do anything, that felt no pain, that didn't accept excuses. I was hardcore.
Dude, how could he ever live up to that?
Right.
Ever.
Like,
and it's a daily reminder.
And so then at that point, I made a decision after I had started to experience what I finally found out that my son needed from me. It wasn't what I wanted to give him. It was what he needed. And then at that point, this is the only football relic that I have in my house. There's no jerseys anywhere. There's no pictures. There's no achievements. There's no trophies in my house.
He literally has the Super Bowl trophy. You guys can't see this. In a case, locked in his office under a desk.
Kyle's sitting on it right now.
Kyle's sitting on it right now. Like,
Kyle's sitting on a Super Bowl trophy.
Like, he decided that this experience with his son was going to be different, and he was going to break the generational curse of what a typical man looks like. And dude, it's the best. It's just the best. Yeah. Like, and then to have, because now it's a place of creation. Like, you're not basically trying to fill in the holes of the past. You're now creating from a place of presence with your son. Yeah. And it's just the fucking best, man. Like, it's just really, really cool. And like, who knows what would have happened if you didn't?
Yeah, I mean, the relationship that I had with my son 1 year ago and the relationship I have with my son now it's polar opposite, because my son had experienced so much of the achievement because I had him right after my rookie season. And so he's been along the ride for my entire NFL career. He was on the field when we won the Super Bowl. He was old enough to know what's going on. It was just achievement after achievement after achievement. He had no idea during all of those achievements that, like, I was really in a dark, dark place. And the only thing that made me feel any better was achieving those things. So like you were talking about, how you would get high from working out, get high from this, and how I do that every single day. Like
I do too.
Like
yeah.
today,
Yeah.
like when you called me and you're like, "Hey, dude, Puke Hill, it's going to be unrunnable this morning." And you're like, "Hey, do you want to do a podcast?" We could have done the podcast, but I knew that I wouldn't feel right unless I worked out first, and I wanted to feel my best in order to do this podcast because I want to show up in a way that connects with people. I don't want to preach to people. I want to connect with people, and I want them to know my story, and I want them to know that they're not alone, and I want them to know that behind the conversation, like the conversation that we had, behind that conversation is an infinite world of possibility, as cliche as that sounds, because
So true, though.
there is so much freedom in surrender. Like, surrender is not weak.
Mm-mm.
When you surrender something like you surrendered today, when you surrender something, you become free from it.
Yep.
And that's what I feel like the theme of this show, without us really kind of like brainstorming how we can connect with people, is just sitting down, having conversations with people who have had experiences that are willing to share and get outside of what's comfortable or what's marketable or what's sexy or what's brand building, and actually able to just be seen, for lack of a better word, with no costume, with no mask, with no filter. And when you can show up in that way, regardless if people think you're better for doing it or worse for doing it, when you have the conversation with yourself at 10 p.m. while you're brushing your teeth before you get into bed, tell me how much different you feel about yourself. It's empowering. Feel
100%.
stronger.
100%. And then you do the things you need to stay empowered. After surrendering to whatever it is, it could be like a super crazy business deal that goes sideways. It could be as simple as a fight with your wife, and you're like, you know what? I'm not going to let this eat into my day of production. I'm going to surrender to what happened. I'm going to literally maybe have a conversation with her, and then I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm going to keep going into the day. And this is a perfect segue for us to pivot into like, okay, now what? I've surrendered. I've got all this stuff out. How do I go to the next level? How do I go here? So like I'm a huge person of course correct. I never stop. Like if my entire life is in 90-day chunks and challenges. I put myself into contract, which is why I love what you were talking about earlier. Like, contracts for me are like sacred. And the sacred contracts I make with myself, if I break them, it's catastrophic because of the guilt and shame around it.
Yeah.
So when I put myself into a contract every 90 days to achieve these wild things that my wife too gets annoyed because I set these crazy goals, sometimes I have to become a different person to even achieve them. So I do a physical, I do a spiritual, I do one in business. So when I'm setting these goals and targets, like, let's maybe walk them through some of the stuff that you might do to keep you on track when there is a contract in place. And contracts are powerful. And when you put pen to paper and then you sign it, it's really, really powerful. So let's maybe walk them into, okay, I feel better. I have more capacity. I'm ready to conquer the world, but now what?
I think, you talk about contracts like that is, think about an NFL contract. They give you a signing bonus. We're telling more stories this morning. So, dude, you know what? You had a heck of a morning, man. You had an opportunity to talk to my biggest life mentor, my best friend. I named my daughter after him. His name's John Carney. Probably end up being a guest on your show.
For sure. He has a great energy. The vibe of John is awesome.
He's an amazing human being. So it was his gym that we were lifting at this morning. It's a gym. I say it's for pro athletes, but we have some college and some high school kids that come in there to train as well. But it's a boutique gym. You can't just come in and work out. And we were in there having a conversation with John Carney, 23 years in the NFL, went to the Pro Bowl at 44 years old, won a Super Bowl at 42. Amazing dad, great entrepreneur, just the type of person that you hope your son grows up to be.
Right.
So we're talking about NFL contracts, and we were talking about John Carney. His first NFL contract was, I think, $82,000 back in 1985. I was born in 82.
Yep.
And he was one of my teammates. So you think about an NFL contract, and you get a signing bonus for signing the piece of paper. And then when you sign that piece of paper, you are agreeing to deliverables, and they are agreeing to a compensation. So very similar to you with contracts, I have a contract with myself. And I used to kind of judge my day based upon my productivity, based upon the things that I got done, kind of like a to-do list. If I got them all done, then it was a good day. If I got them all done well, it was a good day. And if I didn't get them all done, if life happens and you don't get them all done, or you don't get them all done the way that you want to get them done, it was a complete failure. And so it led me to having a very toxic relationship with myself, because very rarely does the day go, especially when you're an entrepreneur, does it go like you expect it to go. And very rarely do you get everything done that you expect to get done, especially if you plan a lot for yourself like I do.
Very rare.
I had myself wrapped up in a game that I couldn't win. So I would get like one win out of 29 losses in a month. And it led me to have a very toxic relationship with myself, because I was never proud of myself.
It's the self-worth game. We literally set ourselves up for failure to have that dark part of us fed, like a sickness.
Right. So
I get it.
So the way that I do it now is I don't base the win or the loss off of the to-do list. I base the win or the loss off of 3 determining factors. Was I full of integrity today? Was I honorable? Was I accountable? Like, if I said I was going to do something, did I do it? The way that I did it, did I have integrity and honor? And so I filter every decision that I make in a day through the filter of integrity, honor, and accountability. So if there's something that I'm about to do, I just remind myself integrity, honor, accountability. If there's a decision that I have to make, what would a man of integrity, honor, and accountability, what would he do?
It makes it really easy to make quick
Dude,
decisions.
my decisions are made because I have this character in my mind, a man of integrity, honor, and accountability. And I'm trying to be that man with every decision that I make. I worked out this morning. The workout went well. Did the podcast with Andy. I'm really proud of the way that I showed up. I think it's going to impact people's lives. And then, I've got to run 3 miles because I've got a 13.1 mile race coming up in 24 days. I'm tired, man. I don't feel like doing this 3 mile run today. That's not a decision that I have to make. Like, I'm committed to that. So in a particular day, I don't make decisions. I take the power away of my feelings. So I don't feel like getting up. More likely, you're not going to get up. Nobody feels like getting up. I don't feel like going for a 3 mile run.
That was a huge point, and I really want everybody to hear it. I take the feelings.
I take the power away from my feelings.
The power away from the feelings. Man,
well, think about it. Like,
it's the excuse machine comes from your emotion that you attach to it, right?
So it's not like I deadden that.
Yeah.
Like, I still want to feel. I don't want to be a machine. I was a machine for portions of my life, and it worked well for me because I achieved. I want to live a life, and I get to create a life that I get to feel my feelings, and then I get to operate off of commitments.
That's right.
So feel the feelings like, I don't feel like going for a 3 mile run after we finish this podcast, but I'm committed to that because that's part of my race plan.
So the feeling does not define your action.
No, my feelings obviously influence my life, but they don't control it.
Smart.
So I love my family. And if my son comes up to me, he's like, "Hey Dad, can you go shoot baskets with me?" Of course I want to go shoot baskets with my son. I freaking love my son and I like basketball. Something I want to do. But if I'm committed to running, I get to, as a leader in my family, I get to find a way to play basketball with my son, but still honor my commitment.
That's right.
But my commitment to my son is also, I have a commitment to running. So how do I get to create the life that I get to do both of those? So maybe I get my 3-mile run in, and instead of spending 15 minutes stretching and drinking water and cooling myself down, why don't I go get that run in and shoot hoops with my son for 15 minutes? Then when he goes to basketball practice, then I can stretch. It's all about being creative, because it's so easy for us to find reasons why we can't or we shouldn't instead of the one reason, which is your freaking commitment.
That's right.
To get it done.
That's
because
right.
feelings get in the way of success.
100%. And there's literally usually between 17 and 18 hours in the day most people get to operate. You can't figure out how to get like a 30-minute run in. You can't figure out a way to shoot hoops with your son for 15 minutes because you're an excuse machine. You have big problems, and you need to address them quickly.
And that's why, like, I get frustrated because especially with millennials and with younger entrepreneurs right now, is they want to consume all of this content and all of these courses and all of these different books for the tactics and the mechanisms how to create their life of their dreams, the business of their dream, and this and in real estate and all these things, and all those tactics and mechanisms are important. However, if you want to boil one thing down, like what will create happiness, prosperity, and just a freaking righteous life to live, it's the relationship you have with yourself. Because I know for a fact, if I'm operating in integrity, honor, and accountability, I know I'm going to win at whatever I'm doing. And I know whatever I'm doing is going to be something worth doing because I'm operating in integrity, honor, and accountability.
At the highest level.
So the conversations that I have in my head, I'm able to acknowledge them, my feelings or my self-doubt or my, generational curses or self-limiting beliefs, all those things, those conversations that go on in every single person's mind. Every single time you make a decision based upon your commitment and not your feelings or the voices in your head, you are exercising the muscle of commitment, which is becoming stronger. And you're also atrophying the muscle of feelings.
And the fear around
So
it.
if your feelings, that muscle gets weaker and your commitment becomes stronger than your feelings, you're going to start to move the needle in the facets of your life that are important to you.
100%.
So it's a very simple way for people to make decisions in a day, because everybody wants the nutrition plan that's going to change their life and the training plan that's going to change their life or the real estate course that's going to change their life. But really, at the end of the day, having a plan is incredibly important. An effective plan is incredibly important.
Agreed.
However, the person executing that plan is always going to be 1,000 times more influential in the success than the actual tactics that they're using.
Always. It's success leaves clues. Success has habits around them. And when you can package all those things together, it'll usually work incredibly. A perfect example is the fitness and the health and nutrition space. You go to the gym every day for a month. I don't care if it's 10 minutes or 10 hours. After a month, you can roll into a pizza party with your kids at a soccer game and look at a piece of pizza and go, I don't want that. Or like, I'm going to have this piece of fruit instead, because you've put in the work, you've been committed to a process, and you know that might not be the best thing for me. It's the same thing in business. It's the same thing in marketing, the same thing with your relationships. When you do the actual work and you're putting in the reps and you're getting that muscle toned, you have this weird gap that starts to happen where you can make a decision. It's not a split second, I'm hungry, I'm going to eat that. It's is that the best thing for me? And it's the same with your time and your decisions.
That's feelings and commitments. Like, that pizza looks good. I'm hungry. I feel like eating it. However, if for some reason that's not on your agenda,
on your plan,
that's not on your commitment list,
that's right.
Make your decision based upon your commitment and not your feeling. Because if you operate enough on your commitments, when you go and have a piece of pizza or cake, or you decide to take 2 weeks off of work, if you operate on commitments long enough, guess what? You get to take those 2 weeks off, and you don't have the stressor of like missing something. That's right. Like my plan, and we were actually talking about it in the weight room earlier today, my goal and my plan this year is by the time we get to July 4th, I want to be done working by 3 p.m. every day. And then the second phase of that goal is I want to be able to take the entire month of December off, completely off. Like, yeah, I'll check in with my team, but I don't want to work the entire month of December. And that's my motivation. And really what it's teaching me is I can be more productive with the time that I have. So if I'm more productive with the time that I have, and my relationship with time becomes more intimate, and I start to value my time the way I value other people's time,
That's right.
I'm going to be more efficient, and that's going to allow me to actually have more life.
More freedom.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So if somebody loves to watch Netflix, make a commitment to yourself that you're going to bing, 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 bing. You're going to run the gamut until 6 p.m. And then from 6 to 7 p.m. every single day, you can watch an hour of Netflix. Like, earn it.
Earn it.
If you earn it and you practice that model everywhere else in your life, I'm going to reward myself by taking the entire month of December off. But that means I have to get 12 months of work done in 11 months.
And that goes back to honoring your commitments, honoring your contracts. And by doing that over and over again, it actually fills your self-worth back up if it's depleting. So I did exactly that. I would slowly start to reward myself, because my kiss of death my whole life was literally like breezing over my accomplishments.
Yeah.
I would win. I would feel it for a second. What's next? What's next? What's next? And taking time to celebrate my wins was something I really struggled with. So by really feeling what that felt like, I was being, it was massively disserving me. So I had to fix it.
Yeah.
And it was scary and it was hard, like everything else is. But when I'm the happiest, and we actually talked about a little bit at the gym, when people are learning something new, this is like science, you cannot doubt this. They've studied the brain. When you are learning something new, you're the happiest. If it's about you, about yourself, branding, marketing, your kids, something, the physical human body is happier.
Yeah, I love, we were talking about earlier in the weight room too. We should have just like recorded all of our time together.
That'd be good.
But between all the grunting and cussing in the weight room, we actually had some pretty good conversations. But I love physical challenges, like things I can do with my hands. And I'm starting to get more comfortable with mental challenges. Like every single time I say the word, hope or wish, like I'm self-correcting myself, like will. Yeah. Just speaking the championship language. But I love physical challenges, like running 13.1 miles, which people listen to this be like, I've ran a marathon before. It's not a big deal to them, but they don't.
Big deal to you.
It's a big deal to me.
That's right.
It pushes me, and I'm not a runner, and now I'm, 2 days ago I ran 8 miles. I've never ran more than 3 miles in my life, and I did it without walking, and my time wasn't crazy. It was like a 9:30 mile or a 10-minute mile, but I was committed. And during the hour and 18 minutes that it took me to run this,
because there was times you probably wanted to walk.
Are you kidding me? Dude, that's the conversation I was just about to have. Like, I had 3 different times during that hour and 18 minutes, because the longest I've ever ran previous to that was like 25 minutes. Because you're a football player, you're a sprinter in track, basketball. You don't run longer than 25 minutes. It's not required. Nope. It's not in the training. So I get to the 25-minute mark. I'm like, I'm all right. I'm all right. I get to the 30-minute mark and be like, you know what? Maybe I should do 30. I started to negotiate with myself. Maybe I should run 30 minutes and then just walk for 2 minutes and then run for 30 minutes and walk.
That's the self-sabotage.
Yes.
I get it.
And I knew. I
get it.
freaking knew it. And nothing was good. Like, I was running on a treadmill because I've been running on the road, but for this longer run, I wanted to save my knees a little bit.
Smart.
So I'm stuck in here. There's no entertainment. The TV, the stuff they have on is like all politics stuff. There's nothing. Like, I was just watching the timer tick and tick and tick and tick. And I had 2 other times I'm like, all right, maybe if I just run for an hour and then just walk for 2 minutes and then I'll run the rest of it. But I knew by the time I got to the end of 8 miles that I wasn't going to be proud. Yeah. And I wasn't going to be able to say, I ran the furthest I've ever ran in my whole life unless I ran the whole thing. So point being is, I play those games with myself every single day. It's like, I call it pride factor.
Yep.
To me, it's pride factor. Like, who's going to win? Are you going to let your feelings win because you're tired? And like, you know what? I've never ran this long and I'm starting to get a cramp in my neck, because I was. Like, my whole neck was like locking up because my traps are big. And so they were getting tired from going like this and running. And I had like 6 or 7 excuses as to why I should take a break and run. I'm 250 pounds and this, and, you know, I've got a bad back and all these things, like rationalizing in my mind why it was okay to walk. But that breakthrough for me, and this happened 3 days ago, just reminded me how much more I need to play that game with myself in a positive, like, relationship building way. Because there was so many times in my life when I'm doing drugs and stuff like that, that I know when I'm about to chew this pill up, I know I'm going to feel better in about 17 minutes. But when it wears off, how am I going to feel about that? Because I made a declaration to myself that I'm never going to put another pill in my body. How am I going to feel when that euphoria wears off in about 2 hours and then I've got to start back over again? I've been there before.
Of course, me too.
100 times, and I know it ends up in the same exact place, but it's so hard to get through to an addict, and it doesn't matter if it's drugs or if it's sex or if it's like retail therapy when people go buy things and it makes them happier for a day, and then they wake up the next day and that purse or those shoes or that watch or that home or that car doesn't fill them up the way it did the day before. You actually feel worse than you did before you got that purse or that watch, because even this didn't make you mad, and so, or this didn't make you happy. So you were talking about these different achievements, and your biggest problem was you didn't acknowledge yourself.
That's right.
I'll give you a quick story. February 5th, 2012, Super Bowl 46, 47 miles from my hometown, was the only game that I didn't vomit before, because for some reason, like, God placed his hand on me and I had peace that day. I had the greatest game of my life. I broke a Super Bowl record, 72 million people watching the game, 47 miles from my high school. Everybody that I know and loves watching the game or at the game. I finished the game. The coach only mentions 2 players' names in his post-game interview, and I was the first name that he mentioned in regards to my impact on helping my team win the game. So it was super special. Tom Coughlin, like, never mentions his players' names. So when they do, like, media's like, oh, he mentioned this name. He'll usually say our wide receiver or our quarterback or our kicker or punter or whatever. So the fact that he even mentioned my name was like a big, big deal. And Al Roker interviewing me after the game, like, I'm on cloud freaking 23. Mom and dad's there. My son's holding the trophy. Like, I could not have been more happy. And then we go to the post-game party with the team and Kenny Chesney singing. Dude, it's freaking crazy. And I drink one beer. I remember looking at my wife, because we had always joked, you know, when we were younger, because I've been with her since I was 19. Man, when I win the Super Bowl, I'm going to get so shit-faced. It's going to be crazy. We're going to party, all this stuff. And I remember drinking one beer and looking at my wife and, like, looking at my family and everybody celebrating and dancing. And I remember looking at her, and she's asking me if I wanted another drink. And I remember looking at her and thinking to myself, I don't want to feel any different than I feel right now. Yep. So about an hour goes by, the party ends, and my family goes back to their hotel. My wife goes back to her hotel, because they stayed at a separate hotel from us, because it's team function, obviously. So I go back to my hotel room, and I remember it's about 2:30 in the morning, and I remember walking up to the big window that overlooked Indianapolis, and I'm looking down on Super Bowl Central, and everybody's down there partying 3 o'clock in the morning. Everybody's hooping and hollering. And I remember looking down and taking a deep breath. And before I really exhaled out, Andy, I thought to myself, like, by myself, it was the first time I actually had my own thoughts instead of the stimulus of what's going on around me. And I remember thinking to myself, like, this is it? I don't feel any different. Like, here I am, worked my whole life to get to this point. I get to this point. I have the greatest game any punter's ever had in the Super Bowl. My coach is acknowledging. My teammates are loving me. It's my contract year. So I know, like, a month or two from now, I'm about to get like a $4 or $5 million signing bonus. Just my bonus alone. So life could not have been better. And as soon as I was by myself and I was out of the ecosystem of people telling me how great I am and the outside world giving me my self-worth, and I was alone with my own self-worth, and I thought to myself, like, this is it. I don't feel any different. Shouldn't I, like, feel different now? It's not like, how can it get any better than this? And it was looking back on it now. I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back on it right now, like, I was sick. Like that. That's like a sickness.
Dude, and your whole face changed when you were telling that story. It was intimate, like you flashed all the way back there.
I was
and
living it
felt
in my
it
mind.
again.
Yeah, I haven't really talked about it that much, but
Why do you think though that you were in that place with all of the most amazing things you've worked your whole life for, friends, family, exactly like you just described, but you're still just with you?
it all goes back to the relationship I had with myself.
That's
Like
right.
all these people were saying things to me about me or my performance that were, outside of me. They weren't talking about like the person I was. They were talking about the things that I did, which that was like the story of my life. People would never say when I was 17 years old, like, oh my gosh, Steve Weatherford, he's such a generous, like kind, just like present, open-hearted, empathetic, strong man. They would always say, Steve, like, oh my gosh, did you see this 17-year-old kid just hit a 61-yard field goal in a high school game? He just had 33 points in this basketball game. He's a state champion high hurdler. Like, they would talk about what I did, not who I was. And so my self-worth was outside of myself.
Sounds very
It was never
familiar.
me,
I get
it was Andy. Yeah, Andy, he sold this house and, he flipped this house and made this much money. They never talked about, man, Andy's like, he's really incredibly intelligent and like, man, he cares about people. Like,
so now you get to rewrite that. Like that's the really
oh,
cool
I'm rewriting
part.
it right now,
I know
man,
you are.
and I'm
like,
writing
dude,
it in freaking Sharpie.
I know you are. That's why it was so cool for me to like hear that story, because I heard the story from stage of
3
all
years
your
ago.
accomplishments. And then I heard a very different story about your character, like who you are, not your accomplishments. Those are awesome. Those things happened. But when you can really stand behind your character and how you're being of service and how you're showing up, that's where there's like 1 million people at your funeral. Like there's not 1 million people at your funeral because you're a Super Bowl champ.
No.
There's 1 million people because you've touched 1 million people.
Agreed.
And the ability to rewrite your own story, everybody that's listening to this has that power.
I don't even want to rewrite my own story, man. I just want to I want to start this. I mean, I've already started, but I want to write new chapters.
That's right.
Because if I rewrite my story, that takes away the 2 times that my 7th grade teacher thought it was okay to put his hands down my pants. It takes away me, doing lines of cocaine off of my dashboard a year ago. It takes away the struggles that I've been with in my wife. It takes away the breakthrough that I've had with the relationship with my son, and the fact that I didn't need to prove anything to him. I needed to be vulnerable with him, to let him see me fail and let me talk to him about when I've struggled. Like my son had no idea that I struggle with anxiety and depression, and he struggles with anxiety too, and he never shared that with anybody until I shared with him that I've struggled with that my whole life, but nobody knew.
Because you gave the safety.
Right. So it's been amazing, the chapters that I've written in my life
And continue
in
to
between about 12 months ago and now, when I got really serious and obsessive and tunnel visioned in on the relationship that I have with myself, because I've been so intrinsically focused for the past 12 months that extrinsically it's incredible opportunities are coming into my life right now that I would have cut my arm off for those opportunities 13 months ago, but now I'm declining them. Because they don't serve what I want to create in the world. They don't serve what I want to create in my marriage or my family. Like 2 months ago, The Amazing Race offered to have my wife and I as contestants in a celebrity Amazing Race, which would be freaking amazing. Cool. Because my wife and I love to travel. We both love to compete. She balances me incredibly well. She's very cerebral and I'm very tactile. It would have been fun, and we could have donated the $1 million after we won to something else. But in my mind, I asked myself, is missing 4 weeks away from my kids and being on the road for 4 weeks with my wife, is winning that going to fulfill me, or is that going to be another trophy and another accolade that I put on the shelf that means nothing to me? Am I doing that so I can prove that I'm the best to myself or to other people? Or am I doing this because I think this would be a fun journey for my wife and I? And we sat down, we talked about it, we prayed about it, and we realized that this doesn't serve us, and it doesn't serve where we want to go. It would be a month away from my business, and a month away from my business means I'm missing a month away from creating things that can solve problems in people's lives, regardless if that's with supplements or training programs or nutritional programs, or creating what we're really working hard on right now, which is I'm going to create, essentially, it's like a dad academy for entrepreneurial dads that, for people like you and me, man, that go out and achieve the world, but don't get that fulfillment that they want. So like the conversations that we have are like, I feel like that is something that I can create based upon my experiences and my network of friends that will come in and speak to these entrepreneurs, speak to these dads, speak to these leaders about the same things that you and I have gone through, to help people level up through that and in spite of that.
Yep.
Or for people that haven't gone through it yet, like if they're just starting out as an entrepreneur, or they're just starting out as, hey buddy, I got a few tips and tools for you because I've been down there. It's a dark, dark place. There's nobody that's going to help you out. I just want to make sure you don't fall into that hole. Yeah. So I'm super fortunate, and I'm super excited right now that my wife and I we just finished the curriculum for a year-long, really transformative, experiential experience of, having 20 dads and me speaking to them every single week, in addition to like one-on-one phone calls. Cause I've worked at scale for so long. I sell tens of thousands of programs and tons of supplements, and it's awesome. I'm super fortunate and I love it because it impacts people's lives, but I'm giving people 20% of what they really need to be happy. Yep. And now with this new vision my wife and I have, we're going to be able to provide to wives and to husbands and to entrepreneurs and to world influencers the tools that they need to build a great relationship with themselves and show up in a powerful way for their significant other, show up in a powerful way for their employees, show up in a powerful way for their kids, and be proud of themselves at 10 p.m.
Dude, mic drop. Like that was I'm in. Like, I want to help. Let me know I can help promote it for you guys. For 1 second you're not going to
be a guest speaker? You're crazy, bro.
I love it. This is okay. So this is a perfect way and segue for us to wrap up this crazy, incredible show. Where can everybody find you? Like, where can they find you on all the social medias? But where can they find your supplements? Where can they find your courses? Where can they? I mean, this guy's literally knows more about health and fitness than everybody even been around. I've been around some really smart people. So like, where can they find you?
Before I encourage anybody to give me their money for something that my team and my wife and I have created, man, my powerful request right now is to take a video and put it onto Instagram story. If you do anything for me in the time that I've invested into this show to serve you, is take an Instagram story video, 15 seconds, and tell me what the takeaway was for you on the show. And tag Andy and myself. And really, awesome. That's my only request is like, if this spoke to you and this resonated with you, shoot us take an Instagram video, put it on your story, tag us, and then when you do that, that will end up in my direct message, because I would love to just connect with your audience. And if they have questions about my journey, or they have questions about what I'm going to get into, if they have questions about my products, like, I really just want to connect with them. And the greatest way for me to connect with them is for them to tell me what they liked about what we talked about, so I can serve them more. Because honestly, like, people laugh. The way that I come up with different products or supplements is I don't want to say addicted, but I am so attached to my direct messages.
Me too.
It's insane. And the reason being is that's the pulse.
It's the realest market data you'll ever get.
Exactly. How do I know how to serve people and create things that solve problems in people's lives if I don't have my finger on the pulse of what they need? So back to, where can people find me? At Weatherford5 on Snapchat, on Instagram, Facebook is Steve Weatherford, YouTube is Steve Weatherford. But yeah, I would say, if you're going to follow me on any one platform, do it on Instagram and watch my stories, because my Instagram timeline's awesome, but those are just highlights and stories from my life. Like, if you really want to be served by me and my journey and my authenticity and my vulnerability, watch the stories, because that's where my real life happens. Instagram timeline's Instagram timeline.
And my entire audience knows this about me. My life is in my stories. My kids, it's my daily vlog. So this is a perfect perfectly just keep following the same way that you guys follow me, because he's true in his story. It's all true, but like you can really get to know Steve as a person, and then you can decide like how he might be a fit to help you. So man, I love it. This was incredible day. Thank you, and we're in his home. Thank you for having us in your home.
Fixed you guys some breakfast earlier.
Yeah, we got breakfast.
Kyle had about 64 ounces of coffee.
Yeah,
hey, big shout out to Kyle, man.
Kyle is the guy.
Kyle took a little snoozer on the way down here, but he has been in service since he woke up.
No, he for sure has. What about your podcast?
Yeah, podcast. Same thing, man. Like that's what I love to do. Like I love to have these conversations, and I love to have a microphone on while I'm doing it. So my show is very similar to yours, man. I want to connect with high achievers of integrity, honor, and accountability, because if that's what I'm trying to be in a day, I want to be around that.
100%.
So I'm super thankful for this opportunity, man. I'm thankful for all the people that have listened to this long ass podcast. Because this is real life, man. This is real struggle, and it's an evolution every single day. Like, you literally have only seen me one other time, and the evolution that you've been able to see from then to now, and then the evolution that you're going to see from now to 3 years from now, you're going to be a whole lot more involved in that, because it'll be fun for us to collaborate on some things and really create content that's not fluff. Oh, it's not the rah-rah, three steps to a better you. Like, I don't have tactics and top 3 and top 5. Just listen to this conversation and take one thing, like we said at the beginning of the pod. Just take one thing and apply it into your life. And off the top of my head, I would just encourage people, if it's that one thing is having that conversation, go have that conversation and clean out your closet. Make room for purity, make room for honesty, make room for authenticity, because the closer you're going to be able to get to operating as your real self in a day, you're going to be amazed to see how the world around you is going to change, because magnetically people that are living the same way that you're living are going to be attracted into your life. And before you know, you look at a year goes by and you kind of self-audit your friend list and see how that changes in a year, because the positivity that you're going to bring into life and into the world and into your relationships, the positivity that you're going to bring by just being happy with yourself is going to filter out the negativity and the toxic people out of your life. Because if you're constantly bringing positivity every single day, the people that grow comfortable just sitting and bitching and moaning about life without doing anything about it, those people will suddenly start to just fade out of your life, because they're allergic to what you're doing in the world. So I appreciate you guys, man. Last call to action. Instagram video, put it on your story. I would love to hear. I want a video too. I want to see your face. As Andy knows,
he's a video guy. Yeah,
he never gets a text message from me ever. Nope. It's always a text message video, because I want him to hear me. I want him to feel me, and that's what I want to do on Instagram stories. So I would appreciate that, because honestly, as fun as this been, watching these direct message videos and being able to connect with you on what you need service on or what you're thankful for, it's going to be great, man. So I actually print out all of the direct messages that I receive that mean a lot to me, and I put them inside of this book. So if I get to one of those days where my depression kicks in and I just can't get myself out of the funk, I pull that book open.
Great tool.
And I go and I read all those direct messages and Facebook messages and tweets that I've received over the past year of when I've been kind of really on this crusade for vulnerability and just like being real with myself. I go back and read those things, and I'm reminded that the path that I'm on is uncomfortable for a reason.
And keep going.
Yep.
Good for you, brother. Super proud of you, man. Guys, you guys got a good one here. Nice and hot. We will see you guys next time.
Appreciate it.
Dude, good shit, man.
Yeah, that was awesome.
100%. That was fucking awesome.
Be a good one.
Oh, yeah.
Water, boys?
Sure. I'll take